What's up? This is Mason Stoops, and I'm back with my friends from Guitarcenter, and we're checking out the Strymon EC-1 Single Head dTape Echo. Most tape echo people are very familiar with the earliest EP-1 and the later EP-3. The EP-1 was originally tube-based and it was a little bit lo-fi but had a lot of character. And the EP-3 was a solid-state-based tape echo that was much cleaner than the EP-1 but lacked that original tube warmth. If you go back for that little window in time, there was the EP-2. There's been a million pedals designed that emulate the preamp from the EP-3, that emulate the tape portion of the EP-3, that emulate basically every single detail of every EP-3 ever made. Don't care about them because I love the EP-2. The EP-2 has a tube preamp like the original EP-1, but it's a little more high fidelity, has a longer delay time, and is all around, to me, the greatest guitar tape echo of all time. Leave it to the folks at Strymon. They managed to do it not only into a pedal, but an even smaller, simpler version of their more familiar El Capistan. That's their bigger tape echo pedal. But even the El Capistan does not do an EP-2 tube-based tape echo, which makes the EC-1 so special. I couldn't be more excited that someone finally did it. I think it sounds fantastic. And let me just go ahead and show you some of the features that are hidden below. Looking right at the pedal, there's 5 very easy and quick to access knobs that cover pretty much most of what is under the hood. Right up top, you have a time knob, which, as you guessed, controls the time of the tape echo. So if I move the time knob while I'm playing guitar or while my guitar is looping through that pedal, it will manipulate the sound the same way that dragging the record head on a tape echo does. The next knob, we have mix. Very obvious. Mix all the way up is fully wet, your echo sound. Mix all the way down is just your dry guitar. Simple as that. In the middle, you have repeats, which just controls the repeats of the echo. The lower you have it, it'll just be a quick single repeat. And then as you turn it up, you'll get more longer repeats. And then eventually it'll go into self-oscillation. And then the last 2 knobs, which are my 2 favorite knobs and will probably be yours too, is the tape age and the mechanics knob. The tape age is exactly what it sounds like. On tape echoes, there's ranges of different tapes you can try in them. Some are higher fi, some are lower fi. Over time, the tape wears out from repeatedly looping around and around in the tape echo, so they lose fidelity, they lose high end, and the sound and the character changes over time. I probably have a dozen different cartridges of different kinds of tape, some that are old and worn out, some that are brand new, different brands, different kinds of tape. All that stuff changes the way the Echoplex sounds, but Strymon went ahead and put all of that into one single knob with the tape age knob, and it works really well. The last knob is the mechanics knob, which as you turn that up, it emulates and simulates all of the quirks and the idiosyncrasies of an old mechanical tape machine. There's not a lot of parts, but there's enough parts that if any one of them goes off over time, it changes the sound of the echo, and that can be really cool. Strymon's gone ahead and given you all that library of possibility of the sounds and just put it into that mechanics knob. So as you turn it up, you get more character, more weird stuff, more oscillations, more hiccups in the tape. It's super cool and super unpredictable and interactive. The last control on the face of the pedal is the record level switch. It's a simple low, medium, and high, but what it does is control the record level, basically the preamp level that was the tube preamp inside of the Echoplex. I think I'll start with kind of where I would set this pedal if my EP-2 were here in the room with me now. Overall, a not too dark and a not too broken sounding tape machine. Just a good recently-ish maintained tape echo sitting perfectly in the mix where you don't really hear it as much as you feel it. Even with a little bit of the mechanics knob turned up, there was a bit of that pitch warble. There was a bit of character happening as the repeats were happening behind the guitar. As a longtime Echoplex nerd, one of the most forgotten about aspects of those old tape echoes, the dynamics that they have, the way they respond when you dig in harder or softer, the way it can kind of just be a bed behind what you're playing, but then poke out when you hit a certain note that's a little louder or you go for a melody, the way it responds and kind of interacts with what you're doing. That detail has been missing from a lot of tape echo pedals for a very long time. I feel like the EC-1 is probably the first I've heard in a long time that really feels like a tape echo, that really responds and has that dynamic relationship like a real tape echo. I would love to show you what makes the EC-1 so special, starting with tape age, the mechanics, and the record level set at basically factory, out-of-the-box, brand new sounding. So what you're going to hear is if you had an Echoplex from 1964 show up at your door, this is what it would sound like if it were brand new tape, super healthy, and a not too crazy record level. Just fresh, easy, clean. Sounds like this. That was, like we said, the healthy, fresh out of the box, freshly serviced sounding tape echo. We had tape age all the way down, so it was brand new and bright sounding. We had the mechanics all the way down, so there was no weird pitch shifting or any warbles from the mechanical part of the machine. And we even had the record level on low. It was almost digital sounding how clean it was. It still has that tube warmth. If you had this next to maybe your standard digital pedal, I would bet you would hear the difference. But it's cool to hear it in this setting where we're hearing as clean and as maintained of a tape echo as you possibly could. When I first got into Echoplexes, I had the understanding that I think a lot of us do that, oh, you want all that interesting character. You want it to do all that crazy pitch bending stuff because that's how you let people know it's a tape echo. And sometimes that's true. It is really cool, and that does lend itself to a song or to a part. But it was my wonderful friend and Echoplex expert, Pete Grosso. He serviced my EP-2 and made it so perfect sounding. Pete really taught me the value in the cleaner and more healthy the echo is, the more you as a player can manipulate what you're doing, the Echoplex will respond to that. Even though that setting we used was very dry and didn't have a lot of its own movement, it means that any little movement or any pitch bend I do on the guitar, the echo really picks that up, and then that starts interacting with what you're playing next. And that's how you get that three-dimensional, incredibly lush and really responsive sound. We have a habit of going the opposite direction and trying to get all of that out of the pedal. It's cool that Strymon's given us the option to even have none of that so that you could really hear how much your guitar is actually doing and really learn how to interact with delay instead of trying to get the delay to do all the work. Like, let the character come from you and your playing. The Strymon does a really good job at emulating and nailing that side of a great Echoplex. For this next sound, I'm going to stay in the same position on the guitar, but I'm going to adjust everything on the pedal. So we're going to take the tape age up to noon. We're going to take the mechanics up to noon, and we're going to bump the record level to the medium setting. So we're going from our once pristine, perfect tape machine to maybe one that's been lovingly played and used and, maybe beat up a little bit, but still overall a healthy machine, not too dark, but certainly swimmier. With that mechanics knob being up, you'll hear a little more of the idiosyncrasies and the kind of little pinch warbles and mechanical sides and issues that this machine has developed over some time. It should be immediately, hopefully, obvious, the difference between that early, super clean, fresh tape sound to what we just heard. It wasn't so much that it took away from what I was playing on the guitar, didn't dominate what I was doing, and it still had that really cool dynamic thing I was talking about, where if I lean into a note a little heavier or louder, those seem to jump out in a really dynamic way. There's a lot of headroom inside of this pedal, just like the original tape echoes. So there's a lot of dynamic interplay. But what we did have was some darker repeats thanks to the tape age and a lot of cool kind of pitch bends and little mechanical issues that made the overall sound more interesting. So almost a completely different genre and a completely different influence, even though I was playing very similar chords on the same guitar in the same setting. Completely different approach and a different response from the pedal with just a few tweaks. That being said, let's go ahead and crank it all the way to the max as just the worst, best sounding tape echo you've ever heard. So I've just dialed in like DEFCON 9000 in terms of this tape echo's about to blow. Like the tape is done, though. It does not have any fidelity left. It's amazing it's survived at all. We've taken the mechanics knob and maxed it to oblivion. There's going to be complete drops in pitch. There's going to be bizarre garbles and tape chewing and things that don't sound technically very good. The last thing we've done is we've taken the record level and turned it all the way up to high. So this thing is maxed out. That tube is burning red hot in there, and we're going to have some crazy saturation in these repeats. It's just going to become a big soup of really cool sounding, weird, broken tape echo awesomeness. If there were a tape echo in this room right now, there wouldn't be. It's gone. The tape echo has left the building. We maxed out the tape age. We maxed out the mechanics. The record level was just like begging for mercy. There was no fidelity. There was not a single note that was in tune. And it sounded So cool. So we've roughly covered everything that I think is awesome about the EC-1. You've heard how absolutely pristine, clean, almost like digital sounding it can be, all the way to super crunchy, super dark, super lo-fi tape echo. And all of that is in a really cool, slightly smaller, really easy to dial in form factor, which I love. I love simple pedals. I like pedals that are just quick to dial in and sound good immediately. And the EC-1 is absolutely that. It also has all those cool settings under the hood. It's stereo. It'll be powered by any power supply you have. It's just a great delay pedal that emulates my favorite tape echo of all time. Couldn't be more happy this finally exists. I wish I had one on tour last year. Not everyone has to go down the rabbit hole that I and other tape echo people have, because now you have the EC-1. If you want to add a Strymon EC-1 to your pedal board, you can go to guitarcenter.com. You can call one of their expert gear advisors or pop into your local GC and hear one for yourself. It's sloppy, but it was fun.